Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Who is Who on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Alhamdulillah and mashallah, we are very blessed to have with us in Alhikmat studio Colonel Munib Ahmad. Welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And for viewers out there, stay tuned and let your friends know that Colonel Munib Ahmad is a very, very interesting person with a very interesting background. He has experience working with FBI, with Homeland Security, and is the colonel with BSO, Broward Sheriff Office, here in the United States of America, in Florida, USA. And that's for those of you who live worldwide in other countries. The BSO is the Broward Sheriff Office in Broward, Florida, USA. So stay tuned as we talk to Colonel Munib Ahmad about his life, his growing up, and what motivated him to get into this career and this profession. And I'm sure that you will benefit a lot from what he has to say and what he learned through his experiences and what he will share with us. Good. So, Colonel, it's a blessing to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you very much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you.
I know someone like you, you know, from a sheriff to the major and now the colonel. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility, psychologically speaking. And for you to take the time to be here in Alhikmat studio on this show, Who is Who in America, it takes a lot from you. It shows your humbleness. It shows your faith. It shows, you know, that Allah has blessed you with that personality that you kept, even though you have moved up in the ranks. And, you know, we call it the ranks. When you talk of law enforcement, we talk of rank. Am I correct?
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's a paramilitary organization.
Yes, and to be up in the ranks and still take the time to come in Al-Hikmat studio, this is a blessing.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. And I know we had the sheriff on before, and he promised that he'll make sure that I come on right after him. So
yes,
I fulfilled that promise. Yes, sir.
He did tell us that he's going to make sure you come one day, and we really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We really love that. So tell us a little bit about what motivated you to get into this career. I know when I checked your bio, you have had experience working with the FBI, with Homeland Security. You're a man in law enforcement. And to move up from a major to the colonel, it takes a lot of experience, a lot of maturity to be there. So tell us from, you know, as a young boy, as growing up, what was your dream? How it all happened?
It was, you know, I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I was born in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. My father used to work for the State Department, and he was stationed in Saudi Arabia. So I was born in a diverse household. You know, we're Indian background, lived in a Saudi country, had an opportunity to go to an Indian school, and an opportunity to go to a Saudi school. At an early age, I was exposed to several cultures.
And I will cut you here in there, Colonel, because
yes, sir.
of the benefit for our audience.
Yes, sir.
And our viewers.
Absolutely.
You know, when you say certain things, I want to kind of provoke it because I know that's what they will be thinking. Hear what? How could this guy who came from Saudi Arabia, born in Saudi Arabia, parents from India, and now he's the colonel in America? I mean, you know, that's how they're thinking, and that's what is interesting. And I think that's a point that will motivate a lot of people to know that you can come from India, you can come from Saudi Arabia, and you can still be the colonel in America.
100%.
Excellent. That's what we hear.
And it brings a lot of things to light, and I'll try to summarize all of it as we go through my journey. And it was continue on with early education, understanding different cultures and dynamics. You know, I was exposed to the U.S. culture at an early age. My father, when he worked at the U.S. Embassy, we had a lot of multicultural events we used to go to. So there would be other embassies and other cultures from different embassies that would come and share all this. And I was very intrigued, and I really appreciated the discipline and the diversity of America, of the United States, how they treat people, how they speak to people, how the discipline is, how the character, the mannerism. but I also liked the different mannerism and cultures from the Arabic culture. From, I had a lot of Saudi friends growing up. I had a lot of Indian friends growing up, and I had a lot of Pakistani friends and friends from all over.
So you learned the adab, the etiquettes, that friendliness with the culture, or the Islamic culture. I mean, to a point, Arab culture, Islamic culture combined together in Arabia. So you grew up with that sort of love and affection.
Yeah, I was very blessed, and to this day, I thank God for giving me this opportunity to be here today. But I was blessed from the day, everybody's blessed from the day they're born.
Yes.
And
yes.
we just have to find our path.
Yes.
That God has chosen for us. So I had the opportunity of going to an Indian school also, where I learned Hindi.
In Saudi?
In Saudi Arabia.
So you mean they actually had an Indian school? What do you mean by an Indian school?
So the Indian
teachers?
embassy has their own school, because there's a lot of foreigners, a lot of Indian people in the Middle East.
Yes.
So each embassy would have a sponsored school. So there was an Indian school in Saudi Arabia.
Oh.
So because my parents had an Indian background, they gave the opportunity, you can attend this school. So it was an Oxford learning education. So it was completely different than the Arab schools. So I had an opportunity.
I'm sure it would have had a different class, a different standard.
100%.
A lot of professionalism.
It was uniforms every day, certain school times, different classes you wouldn't expect in an Arab country. We learned how to read and write Sanskrit. We learned how to read and write Hindi, and also learned Urdu. And there was a little bit of Arabic teaching in the Indian school as well, because of the culture that we were living in.
So most of the students in this school, or in this type of school there in Saudi Arabia, were they basically, of course, foreigners who are working in the embassies, and their workers, etc. The majority would have been.
Majority of the one in the Indian school were of Indian backgrounds. Either they'll be consulate members from the different communities. In Jeddah or in Saudi Arabia, as you know, that there was a lot of turnover from workforces. So every time there would be a workforce change, people that would come from India, they would have a 2-year stay and they would go back to India. So during that transition, they didn't want to change the education. So that's why they left the curriculum the same as the Oxford curriculum that was going on in India.
Okay.
So I had an opportunity to finish up.
That's interesting. So it's a little British system in Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely. So had an opportunity to finish that. I finished my 10th grade there in the Indian school. I was also going to Arabic schools at night, doing to different imams and whatnot. Had an opportunity I was blessed to, I was born during Hajj. So,
Subhanallah.
Yeah, so, my mom still talks about that,
Fantastic.
how that transpired. But, I had an opportunity to do like 5 or 6 Hajjs before my 10th birthday, or my 15th birthday, I should say.
Subhanallah. I mean, who would think that a colonel did 4 or 5 Hajj as a young boy before 10 years?
Yeah, and we're in the blessed month of Ramadan, and it was times that we're like almost hour and a half away from Mecca. Jeddah is about an hour and a half away, and we would go to the Haram every day for Taraweeh and breaking the fast and whatnot, and return back home every night for 30 days in a row. So there's a lot of people that do that. So I had an opportunity to do that. It was very, very moving. That country is very blessed, and obviously everything else that goes on with the grand mosques and stuff. So I finished my school at the 10th grade, and I've always wanted to come to America. My father used to travel back and forth. One of my sisters was born in Maryland, so we had friends there in Maryland. We had friends in California.
Okay.
So my father said, this is time. I finished my 10th grade. I can go into high school or I can go into college, because the 10th grade there was equivalent to a high school diploma here, which I was at the age of, I had just turned 15. So I can start off college. So I said, hey, I want to start off, do my collegiate academia here in the United States. So my father's like, okay, so let's go and travel and see where you would like to stay. So we went to several places. With the State Department, he had an opportunity to move all over the country, and had an opportunity to see several countries before my 15th birthday. I traveled everywhere with him. So went to, saw some schools up in DC, saw some schools in California, and I had an uncle that used to live down here in Miami, so tried an opportunity to look at the atmosphere in South Florida, and it was reminding me a little bit of Saudi Arabia.
Right.
It was always hot.
The temperature.
It's always hot. It's always one season all throughout the year. So I'm like, oh, you know, I can work well here. I also like California too, but you know, because of my uncle, I ended up staying here. So my father left me here at the age of 15, and he went back home because I still had other siblings and stuff that he was taking care of, and he was still working for the State Department at the time.
Right.
So I started school. I wanted to go to school here in the collegiate level, but the colleges here would not accept the degree that I got from the Indian school. Because, hey, I said, you have to have a graduation from a high school here. And did not get that opportunity to provide that documentation. All the ones that were from there were Oxford studies. And so about 20 years ago, it was not the norm for having a lot of foreign students come from an Oxford background to a school like this. They've already mostly enrolled already in college.
Right.
So I tried to apply for Miami-Dade College. I tried to apply for Broward College, but they said, no, you need to have that graduate degree. So they reverted me back and said, you need to finish 2 years of high school in order for you to finish and have a high school diploma. So
did you do a GED or something?
No, I ended up going to high school in Miami.
Interesting.
So I finished I graduated from Southwest Miami Senior High back in 1995. And while I was going to school, you know, my father, you know, was taking care of his family, for the rest of our family back home. And my uncle had his obligations as well. So early on, I had an opportunity to start working and serving. I was all about service. You know, what can I do to serve others? You know, that's what I learned from the beginning. So I started working at stores, you know, convenience stores. I used to work at coffee shops and restaurants. I would finish up work, you know, school in the morning. I'd go to work right after school, finish up late at night, and go back to school. Finish the first. I said, I want to finish the graduation. I don't want anybody to say nobody gave it to me. Nobody handed me this.
Yes.
Finish my education while working 2-3 jobs. You know, my uncle was very hard about working hard.
Not to cut you again, Colonel, that is what I think our viewers need to contemplate on. You know, our youngsters, our parents, that they can motivate others. What you're saying here, to be a colonel now and to have worked 2-3 jobs after school, going to school, doing your work. I mean, if you don't put this kind of effort, sacrifice, you know, you don't really reach places. Illa mashallah. But you have to do that. And a lot of people want to reach the sky and they don't do their groundwork.
And you
that
just
is
hit the
phenomenal,
nail.
what you're saying.
And you hit the nail on the head. You have to do the work. Nobody's going to hand you anything.
Yes.
You have to provide. You have to serve others.
Yes.
And that was my motto. And I want to take you back a few years. When I was 8-9 years old, I remember something that stuck with me. So I was watching television. You know, Saudi television is very strict and how they provide news and whatnot. So in Saudi television, one time I saw the Malik, the king of Saudi Arabia, change his name.
And when was that? How long now was that? You saw that?
Oh my God, I was probably 8 or 9 years old.
Okay, I like that.
And it was right after Isha prayer, and they had a big announcement saying that the Malik, we were no longer going to call him Malik Fahad.
Yeah.
The King Fahad was the highest monarch at the country at the time, and he changed that from Malik to Khadim.
To the servant.
To the servant. He said, Khadim al-Haramain al-Sharifain.
Yeah.
I'm the servant of the 2 grand mosques. And that stuck with me.
Subhanallah.
I said, service. I said, the highest ranking person, the king of this country, the ruler of this country, changed his name to a servant. We're all servants of the Almighty. Provide the service. I meet somebody, you talk to somebody, find out what they need. What can you do to serve them? If you can serve them, ultimately, you're going to get the rewards.
Of course.
And the rewards may not be here monetarily, financially, whatever the case might be, but somebody up there is watching you.
Of course.
And looking at you and saying the things that you're doing. So that stuck with me. It was always about the service. So
Subhanallah.
when I started working here, I always wanted to be in the service industry. How to serve people, how to do things. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed serving coffee. I enjoyed working at stores and serving people and talking to people. And afforded me the opportunity to, you know, save up some money. And at the time, technology was huge. And I wanted to provide a better service in the technology field. And I started going to school for computer programming. So I became a computer programmer. And I went to school for Visual Basic and C++ programming, which was like basic programming back in the day.
Right.
Finished that school, and I started looking for opportunities.
And your father is an experienced person in computer tech.
Yes, he has.
So funny. He's blessed with that, yeah?
Funny you say about my father. So right around the time I graduated from the degree of computer programming, my father was coming to his 25th year of retirement from the State Department.
Oh.
So he was retiring in Saudi Arabia. So he said, hey, come back, finish my retirement up, and then we will all migrate to the United States after we finish. So I finished my degree. You know, my uncle was a huge mentor for me, how to go about working hard.
So your dad was still in Saudi while you were studying here?
That is correct, sir. Yep.
Okay, yes, no.
So,
okay, interesting.
Yeah, so my uncle kind of guided me during those times, and
right.
instilled the work ethic and the personality and everything else that goes during those hard teen years. So I spent that with him, and there was nobody else. It was a very small, back then it was a small community, so it was a very tight-knit group that we used to look out for each other and understand, you know, the different dynamics of the country. So it was easy for me to, now I look back, it's so easy for me to work back then, but at that time, you know, my friends would be working, not working and enjoying the weekends and doing all the extracurricular activities. I gave up a lot of sports. I used to play soccer in Saudi Arabia a lot.
Of course, they love soccer.
Yeah, we love soccer. So,
yes.
So I had an opportunity in high school to go play soccer. And I said, well, if I play soccer, then I'm not going to be able to work. So I sacrificed sports for working, which is very hard to do because I was always passionate about something. When you become passionate about something, you achieve it to the full degree. So I said, I cannot commit myself to this and not knowing that, you know, my father is struggling back home, my uncles are struggling, everybody else is struggling. I said, I don't want to be a burden to them. So I continued to work and sacrifice my sporting career based on that. So fast forward a little bit, finished my degree in computer programming. I went back to Saudi Arabia to help my father finish his career with the State Department.
Right. Well, you know what? We'll have to take a short break at
Yes,
that.
sir.
Because that was a break in your life when you left and you went back to Saudi. And now we have reached our 15 minutes here of conversation.
Yes,
We've got to go on a short break.
Absolutely.
When we come back, we need to continue on that. When you went back to Saudi, what happened? What was that whole change to coming back to the United States of America? And what motivated you to get into law enforcement? That is interesting. And that will be very motivational for our worldwide viewers. So stay tuned. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Colonel Munib Ahmad and his whole experience and all that achievement that Allah has blessed him with to becoming a colonel from different stages in life. Stay tuned when we come back, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the Quran, in chapter 5, verse 67, Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhar Rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al, fama balagta risalatahu. Very deep. Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to spread the message of the Quran. And he told the Prophet, and if you do not spread the message, you did not fulfill the mission of the messenger. So you and I are followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we can afford one Quran, help us join in distributing the Quran. So if you can't afford one Quran, do it. $3. 10 Quran, $30. 100 Quran, $300.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Once more, we're talking to Colonel Munib Ahmad, a man with a lot of experience, and I would like to say after listening to his conversation and his discussion in the first segment, a man who is very blessed. He's blessed and chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he has that spiritual upbringing, but yet Allah has blessed him into the rank and file of law enforcement, and today he's now a colonel with BSO, Broward Sheriff Office, and has had the opportunity to walk into many parts in this profession. So stay tuned as we continue this conversation with Colonel Munib Ahmad. Yes,
Sir.
So as we were saying, so you went back to Saudi Arabia.
I did,
Yes.
and finished my father's 25-year career with the State Department.
Mm-hmm.
And I was almost there for 6 months or so. We packed up everything that we did for our entire lives there.
Wow.
And migrated to South Florida from Saudi Arabia. So
Alhamdulillah.
it was a big change for the rest of the family. I was a little bit more accustomed to it since I was already here. My sisters were a little bit on and off. And we started.
So how many siblings?
So I have 3 sisters, alhamdulillah, and a brother.
Okay, mashallah.
So they
So you got 5 of
5
you
of
got a
us all
handful.
together. Literally a handful, yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
So they were still in high school at the time when they finished in the schools and back in Saudi Arabia. So they started up schools here, and my father wanted to get into business, some kind of a service business. So he was always about service too.
Yes, yes.
So we started a dry cleaning business. Funny, right down the street from Alhikmat Studios. We had our first dry cleaning store. So I was the vice president of the corporation, and we started a store from nothing and made it into a very big store. We had additional stores in Aventura, and we made it a big success out of it. We worked hard, 20 hours a day. It's one of the toughest businesses, as you know, you can get into.
Of course, a lot of labor.
A lot of labor, and we weren't shy of that.
Right.
My entire family wasn't shy on that, but it was taxing on the family as well. We had to sacrifice. I had to sacrifice my schooling and my collegiate goals and objectives about getting into sports and whatnot over working hard. I didn't want my sisters and everybody else to go through that. So my uncles, my father, and everybody else worked really hard in that business. We made it to a very profitable business.
Right.
And because of the schooling, we ended up selling the business
Yes.
for a good profit. And then I got into other additional businesses with stores and different opportunities. And at the time, there was a lot of asks for programmers and in the technology field. So I was approached by several companies and ended up working for Compact Computers.
Oh.
Right around that time.
Okay.
So
interesting.
close to about like late 90s, I was working for Compact Computers at the time. Now, the big Q back in the day. Had an opportunity to work for technical support, did preliminary server support, and I got accepted to a managerial position with them.
Right.
And had an opportunity to grow furthermore, but then the company got bought out by HP. So when Hewlett Packard purchased them, they had an opportunity to move all their operations from the United States to India.
Oh.
So they afforded an opportunity. Do you want to go and work in India? I was like, no, I love this country. I said, this is where I want to stay. This is home for me. So I declined that offer, and then I ended up working for Gateway Computers, with the big cow computers. And I ended up becoming an executive with that company. And they gave me an opportunity to move to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to work for their major plant.
Wow, so you left South Florida and you went up there.
I did not. They offered me a position,
Okay.
but I did not take that position because right around that time, 9/11 happened.
Okay.
So when 9/11 happened, it just shook this world, as you know.
Yes,
So we
the
all
whole
remember where we were and what it did to our.
9/11 was like another COVID.
Literally.
It just shook the whole world
It shook the whole world.
in the
as to-
security area.
Absolutely. So I looked at it and I saw, we all remember where we were when the Twin Towers fell. And I looked at it and I said, who in the world would do this? And as time progressed, we found out what it was. And I said, there's Muslim people that did this? I said, that's not the culture that I was brought up on. That's not the people that I've known before. So I said, what can I do to help? To nab these bad apples out of our society, out of our culture.
Right.
And so I started looking. I said, I've always loved the Marines. I grew up around Marines when my dad was in the embassy. I used to see them, how sharp and disciplined they were. So it was either the Marines or law enforcement, try to see how we can help serve this country. Give back to the country that gave me all this opportunity where I was just a little boy in Saudi, picking up soccer balls in the dirt. So I started applying. I said, I'll see. I said, I don't have all the experiences that they need, but I can offer something with my language, with my background and our culture. So I started applying at several police departments. And I got accepted by several of them at the same exact time. So there's a whole process that goes through.
Right.
You have to go through the basic information, training to become a law enforcement officer. There's an athletic part of it. There's a physical part of it.
Yes.
There's also an academic part of it. So I was going through all that. Then there's also the background, the psychological evaluation, and the polygraph and so on. So it was a whole series of tests that go on for almost a year.
And then being Muslim and 9/11, you got all of that to deal with.
It was, to be honest with you, when the professional looked at me as a candidate, they saw that as an opportunity to see how we can utilize this young man to better understand the community. Because a lot of people back in 2001 did not understand too much about the Muslim community.
Definitely.
They didn't know how to, they understand a little bit about the culture. All they knew is the Arabs. They have oil, and that was it. There wasn't a lot of, unless you actually deal with the State Department level where you're dealing with multiple countries, that's when you have an understanding of what other cultures are, but
course.
not at the community level. So you
because
cannot.
the media had so many different perspectives that people believed and understood what they heard and what they know from the movies, but it was a conflict, a total conflict of understanding.
Sure, and so I got afforded the opportunity of accepting my application in several police departments. City of Miami had contacted me, so did the Miami-Dade Police Department, and the Broward Sheriff's Office also contacted me. The Broward Sheriff's Office, I visited their center several times at the main headquarters, and I was like, wow, so professional. It was a very diverse group back in the day. And I felt like I was home. Something clicks when you go somewhere, and they're very professional about things. So the first one that says, if Allah gives me these opportunities, so whoever that calls me first and gives me the offer, I'm not going to deny that just because if it's for my benefit. So Broward Sheriff's Office contacted me and said, hey, we're going to give you a conditional offer for this position. And I looked at it and I said, I can't believe I'm holding this. And I said, okay, you know what? I did not even look at the pay or nothing like that. I said, I'm taking it. Yes, I considered that I'm accepting the offer. So I went in and I had to give my notice from my previous employer, and I looked at it and I'm like, wow, I'm going to be making $40,000 less than what I was making. So I sacrificed that.
Goodness.
I said, you know what? If this is meant to me, this was dropped for me for a reason, and if I can provide additional service to the community, let me do it. So I proceeded. I started going to the academy, finished the academy, and started working at Road Patrol in Tamarack. So that's how I started my law enforcement career. So I was in Road Patrol at the time, and I was filling my patrol car one time, and one of these sergeants come up and he goes, hey, you're that new guy that speaks Arabic, right? It's like, wow. I said, yes, sir. And it's a paramilitary organization, so there's a lot of respect for rank and
of course
and
of
tenure
course.
and whatnot. So you're always respectful. And he goes, yes, sir, I am. He goes, what are you doing here on the road? I said, sir, I'm working. This is, I just finished probation at the time, or I was getting close to probation. He goes, listen, I may need your help on some of the things we're working. So he contacted me a few days later and got me involved in several undercover operations at the time, understanding, interpreting, and dealing with different cultures in the community. So I was working days at Road Patrol, and at nights I would work undercover operations throughout the county. And
fantastic experience.
It was, and I had a great group of guys that I worked with in Tamarack on Road Patrol, and tragically thereafter, a few years on the road, still working. I was very intrigued about the detective position and how we find out the real criminals and how you go after people that are the real bad apples.
And that's very interesting because it's brainstorming, it's a lot of clicking and ticking and thinking.
Absolutely, and it's not a lot of the Hollywood stuff that we talked about. It's not kicking doors and all that. That comes in way farther down the line before you actually build a case. So I had an opportunity to really gravitate towards that. I'm like, this is where I can serve better. And tragically, in 2007, I can remember this.
Just to cut you a little bit, I know I'm going to put you on a pause. So having that detective kind of mindset and, searching and thinking, which takes a whole different kind of mentality and mindset to have that ability. I know I'm going to cut you here a little bit, but
sure.
With that kind of background and that kind of experience, just to jump ship a little bit, what kind of opportunities did you have in your career now, whenever it was, in meeting some of the higher level political people of the United States of America?
Sure.
And I mean from Congress, senators, presidents, whatever.
Very, very blessed. And right around the time when I was in Road Patrol and I was exposed to the detective side of the house, and I realized there's a whole slew of things that the Bureau does, the Detective Bureau does, ranging from homicides to counterterrorism operations to robbery and so on and so forth. So I took that opportunity. I'm like, this is the career I want to go into. I said, let me divulge into it. Whenever I committed to something, I followed through all the way with it. And tragically, at the end of, I remember this as of, just it was like yesterday, in November 2006, my partner that I work with was shot and killed in the line of duty.
In front of you?
In Tamarack, yeah. And my other zone partner was a dear friend of mine. He was also shot. So I was one of the first ones on scene and saw him, bleed to death. And it was very tragic at the time. And it brought a lot of humbleness of what this noble career is all about. This man laid his life on the line to save the society from harmful people. And I said, I'm going to get these people. I'm going to find out how to go about getting these people. And that's why it intrigued me more to go into the Detective Bureau. And then right after the time, I got transferred to the Detective Bureau, and I worked for the Office of Homeland Security at the time.
That's so you end up in Homeland Security.
Correct, sir. So I ended up working in the counterterrorism unit for the Broward Sheriff's Office. And then that's what I was exposed to, working with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security and the United States Secret Service. So BSO, the Broward Sheriff's Office, gave me the opportunity to go to the best of the best schools. I went to all the best schools that FLETC had to offer. I went to the best schools that the Bureau had to offer. And I was doing classes and teaching them about the culture for the new agents that would come on board to the FBI. And that was making a difference, because most of these folks were right out of college, or people that would come to the Detective Bureau would be right out of academia and not understanding the culture.
Yes, and now they have someone like you who came from Saudi Arabia, have an East Indian background, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Born in Saudi Arabia, and now you're in law enforcement, so they got a complete package that they can benefit from.
Sure, and I've had several opportunities to work for different federal organizations as well, but I've always focused on providing the best service, and I always thought that the Broward Sheriff's Office would be the ultimate platform to provide the ultimate service, because it's not just for one organization. We serve so many. Not only do we serve all the federal entities, the state entities, but we also serve the community. And that was very intriguing for me, how we touch the community, how we understand. So I had an opportunity to go to many mosques and many synagogues and churches and speak about, the different aspects of terrorism. There's not just the Islamic terrorism that also exists. There's also domestic terrorism. There's other things. So enlighten the folks. So I had an opportunity of speaking with the ADL and several organizations about the different opportunities that the agency provides, and exploring for the youth as well. So trying to engage people to come and work for this profession. So it was a very humbling experience. With that came a lot of experiences with working with special events. So I was able to put my work and my effort into providing security services for major national security special events, i.e. the Super Bowl, the Orange Bowl. So any of these big events that would happen in the South Florida area, I put myself in there to learn how to provide the best type of security.
Interesting.
So I had the opportunity to travel all over and look at different organizations, how they provide the security for it, and then bring it back to the agency, bring it back home to us to see how we can make ourselves better. So I had an opportunity to work with the FBI with this, and the Secret Service. So whenever there was a high dignitary person, which you were alluding to earlier, would come into town, the Secret Service would tap into the local resources. And I would always step up, like, I'll volunteer. I'll volunteer to help out. I'll volunteer to help out, to the point that I put enough work into it that our command was leaning on to me how to provide the direction, where to go about doing the different operations within the county when they were moving around. So I was blessed. I met several congressmen, several senators, past presidents. I had the opportunity to meet the king, the Prince of Jordan. I mean, you name it. I was so blessed that
Whenever they visited,
they visited
South Florida.
South Florida, that they would contact us for assistance because we made a name for ourselves. I said, we want to be the best of the best. And we excelled in that. And we made the agency better. We made all our partners feel better that they can count on us, and vice versa. So we established a very good network of folks from the federal side, from the state side, and the local side. So then I got promoted when I was there. I was almost there for almost 12 years in that detective bureau, learning everything. I had many opportunities to excel and leave and get promoted early on, but I committed to learn everything about the job before I excelled to the next.
Right, yeah.
So then I finally got the opportunity to take the sergeant's exam. I got promoted. I went back to Road Patrol for a little while, and then they called me back to the same unit that I was in to supervise the intel and the Office of Homeland Security. So that's where I was when Sheriff Tony was appointed as the sheriff for Broward County at the time.
That's how it all happened with Sheriff Tony. I was going to ask you about Sheriff Tony and your connection with him and this whole promotion and your whole new world into this BSO with Sheriff Tony and all your achievement. But you know what? We got to go on a short break.
Yes, sir.
And when we come back, we want to continue this conversation with your relationship with Sheriff Tony and maybe a little experience on one of your experience in your conversation or communication with one of the past United States presidents or, you know, some of these hierarchy, maybe something if you can share with our audience, share with our viewers, because they will be very motivated by your experience and what you have learned. So stay tuned. When we come back after the short break, we will continue this conversation. And we will learn from this experience that Colonel Munib Ahmad has learned, has benefited from, has experienced, and can share with us. And you viewers worldwide, so you can also be motivated that you can come from anywhere in the world and get up into the ranks in the United States of America. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the Quran, in chapter 5, verse 67, Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhar Rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al, fama balagta risalatahu. Very deep. Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to spread the message of the Quran. And he told the Prophet, and if you do not spread the message, you did not fulfill the mission of the messenger. So you and I are followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we can afford one Quran, help us join in distributing the Quran. So if you can't afford one Quran, do it. $3. 10 Quran, $30. 100 Quran, $300.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV. And for those of you who have just tuned in, we have been talking to Colonel Munib Ahmad, a man that Allah has blessed to have been brought up in an Islamic home, Islamic family in Saudi Arabia. And now Allah has blessed him to be a colonel with BSO here in South Florida. But with that, he has a lot of experience in a lot of different law enforcement areas. So stay tuned as we continue this conversation with Colonel Munib Ahmad.
Sure.
Good. So before we get into the sheriff, Mr. Tony, Sheriff Tony, could you share maybe one experience, or just a couple of seconds of one of the presidents that had to come by and a personal interaction you had with them, or a question or an answer, or which president, whether it's Bush, it's Obama, it's Trump, I don't know. You just tell us.
I honestly, funny you say that, because I met President Biden when he was a senator. He was in Pines for an event, and I met him there. I had an opportunity to speak with him, and he was constantly, he was always say, thank you so much for your service, because he had family that was in law enforcement. So he really appreciated it. I said, not a lot of people get a opportunity to thank you. So coming down from a senator and from now the President of the United States, it makes you feel like, wow, this is something that we should strive for. You know, one of the things I did not mention to you earlier, but the first thing when I landed at JFK Airport, when I was 15 years old, first migrated to the country, I walked outside of the airport, and the first thing I saw was the NYPD car.
Yes.
And it says, protect and serve. And I was like, wow, it hit me again where the service came from khadim to serve. And it always stuck with me. I said, wow. And it was not the Hollywood stuff, but it was all about the good thing that the law enforcement does. So that's something that...
So ever since then, because I wanted to ask you that question, what motivated you to get into law enforcement? But I mean, you gave me that whole history and how you ended up. But as you landed here in New York, JFK, you just saw NYPD. And you like this idea of protect and serve.
Protect and
love
serve.
this service thing.
Right.
And I needed to share that. You know, there's a famous Urdu saying, Ibadat se jannat milte hai, and khidmat se khuda milte hai.
Bilkul.
And you're a man who loves service. And when you serve humankind, you know, Allah loves you. Allah is pleased with you when you're kind to people. God is kind to you.
Yes.
And then not only do you develop spiritually, but you get ranks in the world, in this world and the hereafter. He blessed you in so many different ways.
I'm very blessed.
Isn't that interesting?
Very. And it goes back to what the president said, thank you for your service.
Yes.
And it stuck with me, you know. Ever since I was 8 years old, that whole service stuck with me. So that was one of the moments I shared. I've had several conversations with congressmen and senators and so on and so forth. And every single one of them, they want to do good for the community. They want to bring the community up together. And given us, we're a land of immigrants, as you know.
Of course, of course.
And every single one of us came from somewhere.
Definitely.
You know,
and they know that. They
and
all
everybody
know that.
knows that. And everybody here wants to do the right thing. And fortunately, sometimes the delivery comes out in a different way. But at the bottom heart of every single person is to do what's right for the community.
Yes.
And to do what's right for the country.
So how did this relationship got built with you and Sheriff Tony?
Funny you say that, sir. One of the things I was in charge of at the time when this transition happened was to be in charge of the security of the agency when the sheriff was coming on board.
Okay.
So that is when I first met the sheriff. I did not know him from before. And he used to work in Coral Springs before. I'm sure we crossed paths, but I don't recall any of that. But at the time, the governor said, this is going to be the next sheriff. I said, he's going to be walking in here, Sean. So I ran across the parking lot to grab him and brought him inside, and I stayed with him all the way through because my job was to do protection. And I did that for previous sheriffs and whatnot. So I continued with that responsibility. And we had a good conversation first couple of days the sheriff was in place. And one thing that rhymed with him, that it rhymed with me, was he was always about the service. And he talked about this postcard they used to have with him in college. He went through a lot of trials and tribulations, as you know, in his life. And he had a little postcard, and he shared that with me. He had a little postcard and says, service and equals reward. When he didn't have food to eat at home, he didn't have electricity at night when he was in college, he had that little sticky on his note, and it says, service equals reward. And that's what hit me. I'm like, wow, this man is about the service as well. And that's what we connected. And he was all about the service. And he realized that how much of a hard worker I was, and all the people that were around me, because it wasn't just me, it was a lot of people in this agency that are hardworking people that did their time and tenure. They were just waiting for an opportunity.
Right.
And from that day onwards, we've been tied from the day he was appointed to what it is right now. And then he gave me the opportunity to promote me. I did not want it. He gave me the opportunity.
So then when the sheriff met you, what was your rank?
My rank was a sergeant. I was a sergeant at the time.
You're a sergeant.
Yes.
And from that?
He promoted me to a major. He skipped a couple of ranks. He promoted me to a major.
Wow.
And I'm his executive officer, and then just recently he promoted me again to colonel.
Yeah, so let us know a little bit about the executive officer with the sheriff, because a couple of people have been asking that question when they saw you with the sheriff. It's like, yeah, we know this this Major Ahmad is close to the sheriff. And I try to tell them, I said, well, he's the executive officer. Well, in layman language, I said he's the sheriff's right-hand man. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about
It is, sir.
When
So-
you were the executive, you still, or what
I still
happened
am. Yes, I still am as executive officer. There's, as you know, our agency is huge.
Yes.
We cover about 1,300 square miles. We have 5,700 employees. We're one of 3 agencies in the entire country that have law enforcement, fire rescue, and Department of Detention under one umbrella.
Wow.
So it's we are one of my fellow colonels describes us as we're like an aircraft carrier. So
I know I'm
we
going to
have-
cut you here and there because we just got about 4 minutes again remaining.
Sure.
So I just want to know and want our audience to know, as a colonel, what is your duty as a colonel, very briefly, and this connection with you and the sheriff? Because, I mean, that plays a major role. I mean, where you came from and now look at where you are.
Absolutely.
What is this connection with you and the sheriff as the executive officer, and what is your duty as a colonel, very briefly?
Sure. So as a colonel, you have a seat at the table. You are with the decision makers of what happens in policy, what happens with operations on a daily basis. So my fellow colonels are all in charge of departments. I'm the
Okay.
colonel of the Office of the Sheriff, which oversees governmental affairs, which oversees community programs, community affairs, and all the day-to-day operations that the sheriff needs to get briefed on, because he can't be at 5 different places at the same time.
Not at all, yeah.
So neither can all the colonels be. So we have a good cadre of colonels that are all homebred from the Broward Sheriff's Office who've spent 25, 30 years of their careers here, and they're all colonels at their respective divisions. And they all report to the sheriff.
Okay.
So have me as their right-hand man to sit next. My office is right next to the sheriff. So there isn't anything that goes to the sheriff that
Has to pass through you.
has to pass through me and the undersheriff. So we are a very collective, homegrown group, and we have a seat at the table. I said, funny, if you walk in our building, in our 5th floor, in our executive command, we look like the United Nations. We have people from
Wow.
Jamaica, we have people from Cuba, we have Hispanic people, we have people from all diverse backgrounds, from different religious, cultural backgrounds. So we are literally a melting pot. We are reflective of what the county is.
Right.
The county is a melting pot. And for me to have a seat at the table, I'm very blessed that whenever a decision is made, that my voices are being heard.
Okay.
So it's a huge honor, and I'm blessed every single day. I walk in there every single morning, blessed to be part of this, because for a person to come from nothing, to come from so far out, thousands of miles away, to be in this
Yes.
position today.
And especially with the kind of tarnish that the Muslims carried
Sure.
after 9/11. The kind of, the words cannot express it, what some Americans used
Sure.
to think about Muslims when it comes to law. And here Allah has blessed you into that level.
Absolutely, and the key point to that is don't take the victim approach.
Yes.
If you want to be part of the solution, don't be part of the problem.
Yes.
It's easy to point fingers. It's difficult to do the work, but the rewards are greater when you do the work.
And you're a typical example of that. Ideal example.
Thank you very much.
Subhanallah.
I'm very blessed.
So, and last but not least, so when your office is next to the sheriff, your relationship with him, basically, you got to kind of, as we said, everything got to pass. You got to know most of everything that is happening
Sure.
before it gets to the sheriff's table.
Sure. Absolutely. And
He doesn't have time to waste on anything unless you scan it and screen it before.
absolutely. Myself, the undersheriff. So like I said, it's a huge organization with so many employees and so many different. We're a very high liability entity
Yes,
of government
yes,
when it comes
yes.
to detention and fire rescue and law enforcement. So everything that we do is microscopically torn apart in the media. So we have to do our due
yes.
diligence
That's a
to
whole
make
different
sure
world, yeah.
that we are doing what's right by the community. So we are here to serve the community, and we don't forget that every day that we walk in there. Every single one of my colonels, the undersheriff and the sheriff walk in there. And he even changed, I don't know if he mentioned this to you, but he changed his office. He changed the name, his name tag was in the office. And he changed it from Sheriff Gregory Tony to the People's Office. To
I love
remind
that.
people
Oh,
this
I
is
love
about
that.
the people. It's not about him, it's not about me, it's not about any one of us. It's about the people. What can you do to serve? If you walk in every day, wherever you are, to say, what can I do to serve others? God will reward you.
Wow. So we're out of time, Colonel.
Yes, sir.
What would you like to say in a couple of seconds as we conclude the show?
don't forget about the service. Focus on the service and let the rest fall where it may.
Beautiful. Well said. So to our viewers out there, we were very blessed, and we are very blessed to have with us in Alhikmat studio Colonel Munib Ahmad. And those of you who have just tuned in, you will need to tune back to Alhikmat, Facebook, YouTube, and listen to this whole experience, this learning experience, a life experience of Colonel Munib Ahmad, from where he came to the rank and file that he's blessed with as Colonel with BSO, Broward Sheriff Office. A wonderful experience, a learning experience, a lesson for people who would like to work and serve and become somebody in this world and be blessed, of course, in this world and the hereafter. So always stay tuned to Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. And again, may Allah continue to bless and guide our guest, Colonel Munib Ahmad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.